So this is going to be presentation based, this workshop. So thank you. Hi, Christine. Thank you everyone for joining. When I start the presentation, from when I've done dummy runs, I think I'm just going to be like a small icon on your screen, and you can kind of move me around just in case I get in the way of the text. But hopefully I've planned it all right and it should be fine. So welcome. Let me share my screen and hopefully this will work okay. Share here. Right. Oh, let me get a sneak peek. Let me move you here. Okay, right, I'm just going to move you guys around. Oh, why can't I grab you? Okay, right, getting used to doing all the Zoom. Cool. So, just gone back a slide. Okay, so thank you so much everyone for attending. I am super excited to be conducting this workshop on behalf of the Happiness Planner, and this is the first workshop that I've done for them. So the theme of this workshop is taking back control of your mind, and the whole focus is on managing anxiety. So I chose this topic because anxiety is so prevalent. We all feel anxiety on some level. For some people, that might be just sort of an every now and then worry, and for others, it can be the other end of the spectrum and an anxiety disorder. And in the UK alone, I know you're all based in different countries, which is so exciting. But in the UK alone, so almost half of adults have suffered with high levels of anxiety. So it's really something that we all have in common. And I really wanted to share this workshop today because I think we all are probably feeling more anxious than usual with what's going on in the world at the moment with the coronavirus. And I know that we're all in different countries and all your countries will be dealing with it differently, but some of us might be in lockdown. And this event, the coronavirus, is something that none of us predicted, right? And we're in this situation now, facing it, and we're unable to see our family and friends. We don't know when it will end and go back to normal. And you might be feeling worried that you're going to catch it, or that a family member or friend might catch the virus. So there's a lot for us at the moment as human beings to tolerate, and to tolerate a lot of uncertainty and the unknown. And that's something on its own. Tolerating uncertainty can really generate a lot of anxiety for us because we like to have control as human beings over our situation, and that might resonate with some of you more than others, sort of that real need to control your environment and your situation. So this workshop is going to help you take back control of your mind and give you the tools and strategies to manage your anxious thoughts and feelings. So I just thought, I think we're at the numbers now, it's amazing, we've got 35 of you. Before we begin and I go full into the workshop, let's just take a moment now to ground ourselves in the present, in the here and now. Let's all let go of the day. So in the UK now, it's in the evening. You might be on different time zones, but try and let go of the day so far. Any anxious worries that might be sort of flying around your mind, maybe things on your to-do list, and just focusing on the present for the next 50 minutes. So let's just all take 3 lovely long deep breaths. And as you're doing this, really thank yourself for showing up and taking the time out to serve your mind, body, and soul. So let's all together take 3 lovely deep breaths. So we're going to breathe in and out. And inhale and exhale. And one more, let's inhale and exhale. and come back into the room with me. So hopefully we're all feeling a bit more present focused now, and we can really focus on now the next 45 minutes and the content of this workshop together. So, who am I? So my name is Lucy Spicer, and I am an accredited psychological life coach. As I said before, I'm based in the UK, so I'm based near London, but I work with clients all over the world because I use Zoom. So it's really exciting for me to be able to connect with people wherever they are. My background is in the NHS, so the National Health Service in the UK. I worked in the NHS for 7 years in specialist psychology services, delivering therapy and assessments. And now I've gone into private practice and working as a psychological life coach. So I've worked with thousands of clients suffering from all different types of anxiety, especially in the services that I worked in, because a lot of them were hospital based. The work that I do with my clients is I really help them to become masters of their minds. So to heighten their self-awareness and challenge their self-limiting beliefs that stand in the way of their success and living their fullest lives. And when I work with my clients, I really want to become redundant by the end of our session. So I tend to work with my clients for 8 sessions, sometimes longer. And my role is to be able to equip them as their own psychologist and their own coach. And so that's what I hope to bring to you today, and to get you really skilled in anxiety and managing it. So what is my intention for this session? So as I said before, I really want to teach you to be budding psychologists by understanding the biopsychology behind why we feel anxiety. So next time you feel anxious, I want you to be able to have an understanding of what's going on in your body, and so it won't feel as scary for you. I'm going to show you how our anxious thoughts and our feelings are all interlinked, and how you can then break this cycle. And I'm going to do that by equipping you with evidence-based strategies to help you in your next feeling anxiety. And they're going to be strategies for your mind and for your body. So basically, by the end of this session, I want you to be the boss over your anxiety rather than it ruling your body and mind. So let's get into it. So I want to invite you to really gently go back to a time recently where you've felt anxious, and really connect with that, because that's going to really help you when we go through these strategies, and you can apply it to that anxious thought or feeling that you had recently. And it's something that you can write down, so then you can sort of practice the exercises as we go. And for some of you, that might be difficult to think of. So some common sort of everyday worries, this might trigger and generate some ideas, are things like fearing that something could go wrong and not as you planned, forgetting to do something important and the consequence of that, not being able to control what's happening right now or in the future, making a mistake at work that will result in someone judging you, maybe feeling worried about looking stupid in a social setting. I mean, we're not really socializing at the moment, but maybe on a Zoom call or a business meeting online. It might be wondering if your loved ones or a friend are upset with you. And you might have thought with that, sort of like wondering why they haven't responded to your text message, and if they're mad at you and if you annoyed them, or just feeling anxious about being anxious. That's another common one that I see with my clients. So if you've managed to think of an anxious thought and written it down, by the end of this masterclass, you're then going to be able to understand why you felt this way and how to manage it when you next feel worried. So when a next worried thought comes up for you. So hopefully you've all got something to hold in mind. So I'm going to start with explaining, where does anxiety come from? So starting with the body. And by giving you an understanding of why you feel anxiety so strongly in your body, it will give you back the control, as you're going to have some awareness when I teach you through this of what's going on in your body. And when you feel anxiety, or if some of you have panic attacks, you will know that this can actually feel really frightening when we feel sort of the physical manifestation of anxiety within our body. So you might be looking at the picture and thinking, why on earth do I have a photo of a caveman? And some of you might know the answer, if any of you have sort of studied psychology, that this is called the fight or flight response. And it's been traced right back to where we were cavemen. And what this was, so when we were cavemen, we would have to go out and to battle for our food, to hunt. And that's a really scary situation, okay? Most of us would have wanted to run away from that, but that's what we needed to do to be able to survive. And so to do that, our body prepared us by giving us this surge of adrenaline in our body to help us to go out and hunt for our food. So that surge of adrenaline is the body's alarm and its survival mechanism. And if the cavemen didn't have this sort of surge of adrenaline and this body alarm going off, they wouldn't have survived for that long, because it helped them, it helps you. It's a really weird one, but anxiety is there to serve you, not to harm you. It was something that helped to keep us safe. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about when I'm talking about this sort of feeling of anxiety in your body, you might recognize it as maybe a feeling of restlessness and always being on edge. It might sort of manifest for you in your body as maybe a shortness of breath, or like a feeling of choking and your throat tightening. This is the one I always get, sweaty palms. Some of you might get sweaty palms when you're feeling anxious. You might feel that your heart is racing. You might get some chest pain or discomfort. You might feel like you're trembling or you're shaking. You might feel sick. You might feel butterflies in your stomach. You might feel quite dizzy, or you might feel faint. You might have sort of a surge of like a hot flash, like a real hotness in your body. You might have the opposite and feel chills, or like a numbness or tingling sensation. So these are all the different ways that this sort of surge of adrenaline that I'm talking about can manifest in its body, and it's in your body, and it's why you're feeling like that, because you have this rush of adrenaline, and these are sort of the symptoms that it creates. So you might have felt these symptoms, for example, when you were going for a job interview, or before you're sitting an exam, or maybe going on a first date and feeling those butterflies in your stomach and that hotness and clammy hands, or maybe even like bumping into an ex and being caught off guard. This is how I'm trying to really connect you with what this feeling is within our body. And it's just the body's alarm system being activated. But what's happened is that it's been a long time since we were cavemen. And during this time, sort of this alarm system has malfunctioned in the modern day, as our response to anxiety is the same as the fear response whenever we're in real danger. So if it's like we're reacting, like there's a tiger in the room, or we're going to, we're faced with a lion, or we have to hunt for meat when we're in, this modern day and age. So it's really sort of malfunctioned, and it's not really serving its purpose at the moment. Because what happens is we get this adrenaline because the body is like preparing for us to run away, when actually there's no real threat. The threat is just your mind. It's a danger that you've created in your mind, and really there's nothing you have to run away from. So this is kind of how it's malfunctioned. So our anxious thoughts are able to sort of generate these feelings within our body, and that's why they go hand in hand. And I'm going to take you through a model later in the presentation to show you that. So like this flow chart shows you, so our mind interprets that there is a threat, even when there's no real danger. Okay, when your phone's flashed and it's a message from someone like an ex or your boss, and you get that surge of adrenaline, there's no real threat. There's no tiger in the room. They're not going to jump out the phone at you. It's just our body reacting to feeling anxiety. So that's our rush of adrenaline, and then we're feeling anxious, we're feeling fearful, and this is how it's all interlinked. So now with this sort of understanding, the next time you feel this rush of adrenaline in your body, you can recognize now what's happening in your body, and you can tell yourself that there is nothing to fear, especially with panic attacks. And when you really feel these symptoms, it can feel really frightening. And hopefully now we've gone through this, you'll know that actually this is just a malfunction from back when we were in cavemen, and there's actually nothing to fear. So you can tell yourself in those moments that that anxiety isn't there to harm you, it's actually there to protect you. And you can build on this by when you're feeling this in your body, and we're going to go through a lot more strategies for this, but sort of telling yourself that I am safe, like despite these feelings in my body, I am safe. And this will really help tell your subconscious mind that you actually have nothing to fear. So this is sort of the physical element of anxiety. And I'll show you now how this is all interlinked. So some of you might have heard of CBT. It's cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's really evidence-based and gets very good results for treating anxiety. And it's a method that I often use in my coaching and when managing anxiety and dealing with clients. And so this is a classic CBT model, and it shows us how anxiety manifests. So we usually start here with a thought, and the thought is usually around something bad happening and us being unable to cope. And when we have this anxious thought, we tend to sort of overestimate the risk and underestimate our ability to cope with it. It tends to be very sort of future focused. And so when we have this anxious thought and we're entertaining that thought, we then start feeling anxious. So we go into our feelings, might feel anxious, might feel overwhelmed, scared. This then, if we think back to cavemen, activates our body's alarm system. It's like, okay, hello, we're in danger. We know we're not, there's no tiger in the room, but that's our response. So we then go into our physiological sensations like I went through. So that's the dizziness, that's the hotness, that's the shakiness, that's the butterflies in your stomach. And then this impacts then on our behavior, so how we might behave at that time. So we might sort of avoid certain situations, and then we go back into the thoughts. So if we're having an anxious thought and then we're really feeling that anxiety in our body, that's only going to reconfirm the anxious thought, because it really confirms that we're somehow in danger. So hopefully you're sort of all following this and can see how this starts to become interlinked, right? We have the thought, we have the feeling, we have the physiological sensation, we have the behavior that goes then back into our thoughts. So you can actually, I'll show you an example here, and then you can maybe work through it with the anxious thought that you wrote down at the beginning of the workshop. So a thought, a classic one might be at the moment with most of us sort of working from home and managing our workload, might be, I have so much to do. So I have so much to do. So that then leads you to feeling overwhelmed. You might feel really stressed and you feel anxious. So hello, that body's alarm system is activated. You might then feel butterflies in your stomach, heart racing, have difficulty concentrating on what you need to do. So now you're in that state. That might then impact your behavior by you sort of freezing and you avoiding doing the task because you're feeling anxious and it all feels overwhelming and it all feels like too much. So now you're avoiding doing the task. So what's that going to do? That's going to now reconfirm the anxious thought. So we kind of get stuck in this cycle. And I'll invite you to have a go with the anxious thought that you wrote down. So thinking about maybe what that anxious thought was, what feeling that then generated for you, sort of worry, stress, feeling frightened. What you then noticed in your body. I went through a lot of different ways that anxiety manifests, and hopefully some of them resonated with you. We'll all have our thing with anxiety. And then, and this is the tricky one, how did that then impact on your behavior? So for example, around sort of the coronavirus, and I've worked with a lot of people with health anxiety, the behavior is usually around avoidance. So maybe a thought is, you know, if I go for a walk, I might catch it. So the thought of going for a walk then makes you feel anxious, it makes you feel frightened, you get the physiological symptoms. The behavior then might be that you don't then go for a walk, so you don't test it out to see if it's okay, so you avoid, so you stay inside, you withdraw. And then because you're not testing it out and showing yourself that it's okay, that thought still sits there because we haven't challenged it. So that might be a way, that sort of thought, that's how that would kind of manifest. So I'll leave you to sort of take a photo of this, and you can practice with this in your spare time as well, and when anxious thoughts come up again for you in the future. What I'm going to teach you now is sort of how do we break the cycle. So if we're stuck in this, how do we break the cycle? And the best way, the most effective way to break the cycle is here. We change the thought. So it's the thought that we try to change. And I'm going to show you now how we do this, because we can see the power of the thought. It's the thought that really kickstarts this cycle. And so if we can change it here, we can avoid ourselves feeling anxious and then the body alarm system being activated and that's going around. So it's all around changing the thoughts. So how do we do this? So I've got 3 steps for you here. So we're going to start with the mind, and I'm going to talk to you about what we can do for the body. So to break the cycle, we need to change our anxious thoughts. So the earlier you can catch the anxious thought, the more effective it's going to be for you to stop you from sort of going into that negative spiral. So it's a really proactive response. So when you're next feeling anxious, write out the thought. If you journal, I've seen some of you, your journals. If you journal, write out the anxious thought and follow the processes that I'm going to take you through. And the more and more you practice this, the more it will just become automatic and you'll be able to do it in your mind. So the first thing we're going to do is, when you have your anxious thought, is to ask yourself, is this fact or is this fiction? What our minds like to do is they love to predict and to create truth. So before I was doing this workshop, for example, of course, I felt anxiety. I'm putting myself out there. It's a new environment. I hadn't done the workshop for the happiness planner before, and I'm public speaking. So of course, my mind liked to kick in and it was telling me, oh, Lucy, you might mess up some words. They might not understand what you're saying. They might not find it effective. What if the happiness planner didn't like it? They didn't invite you back. Of course, my mind went there. It's such a natural thing for our mind to do. But what I'm able to do in the moment is I challenge the thought. I challenge the thought in my mind, and I look for all the evidence why that might not be the case and how my mind's tricking me, because it's trying to create a truth. I don't know if that's going to be the truth, but it's really trying to make me believe that that's going to happen. And that's how our anxiety sort of likes to trick us. Thoughts are thoughts. They are not statements of fact. But when we have anxious thoughts like I did, we can then really believe that it's going to happen. And then we live out that fear in the mind. So if I'd latched onto that, I could have easily spent today living out that fear in my mind. And that's not going to be productive for me, and it's not going to serve me. So when we take the bigger picture, so we pull back because when we're feeling anxious, we're very sort of caught up in our own world and caught up in our minds and can think of it as truth. So we try and sort of pull back, and in psychology it's called like taking a helicopter view. So it's kind of seeing it for what it is. And like I said to you, it's what I was doing there. I was challenging the thought and thinking of alternatives, that actually there's every reason for it to go really well, that when you've done lots, I've done loads of public speaking before, people always give you great feedback, that I really know my stuff, and hopefully if I even touch one person today and help them with their anxiety, I've done my job. So it's really pulling yourself right back to try and see the bigger picture and not getting caught up in the detail. And then this helps to reduce the distressing beliefs, right? It helps us to reduce that. So first step is to ask yourself, when you have an anxious thought, because your mind will try and trick you into thinking that it's the truth, is to ask yourself, is this fact or is this fiction? So that's number one. Number two is to ask yourself if you are catastrophizing and thinking of the worst case scenario. So worst case scenario thinking is called a cognitive distortion in psychology. So it means it's an unhelpful thinking style that we have. And this is where we think about we spend our time thinking about the worst case scenario, and we can convince ourselves that it's actually going to happen. So an example, like an everyday example, might be making a mistake at work, which will then result in someone judging you and thinking, you might thinking then, I had a typo in the last reply. So I'm sure we've all done this. We made a typo in an email or sent it to the wrong person. And anxiety can really then spiral with that and think that maybe because you've done that, everyone in your team are going to think you're incompetent. Maybe you made a spelling mistake, so they're going to think you're incompetent. They might not think that you're very good at your job. Someone might call you out on it. Some people might be laughing behind your back. And we could go to the absolute extreme, because our anxiety might make us do that and be like, we're going to get fired because we sent it to the wrong person, unless it's actually really bad and confidential, or we just made a typo. So this is sort of this worst case scenario thinking that our anxiety likes us to do, is to latch on to the worst case scenario. So again, we do what we did before. It's pulling right back and actually reminding yourself that your anxiety is trying to trick you, and that worst case scenario isn't going to serve you, and the likeliness of that happening is most of the time zero. So when we've done this, so we've done our first one, we've asked if it's fact or fiction, you've asked yourself, are you actually just catastrophizing and thinking of the worst case scenario? And then this is the most effective bit, it's reframing the thought. So it's when you've written out your anxious thought, is what can you ask yourself, what can you do then to rewrite a more balanced and helpful thought? And the way that you can do that is asking yourself, is there any other outcomes that are possible in the situation that are more realistic? And asking yourself, what is the worst case scenario that actually could happen? And how would you be able to manage it? It's not going to happen, but you can show yourself that you are actually resilient to be able to manage whatever it might be. We really tend to underestimate our abilities to cope with it. And so other outcomes, for example, with that email, will be that most people just ignore it and they're too busy in their lives to even realize what you've done. Or you might send it to the wrong person, but they might just bounce it back and say, oh, sorry, I think you meant it for so-and-so. It's completely different to what our anxious mind would like us to think the case would be. And I've seen on the happiness planner, there's a great worksheet. It's called Wipe Away My Worries. And I'd really advise you guys to go and check that out, because it guides you through this reframing the thought process. So it's called Wipe Away Your Worries. So these are your 3 effective tools to challenge your anxious thoughts. So pull back, ask yourself, is it fact or fiction? Ask yourself, are you catastrophizing and just leaping to the worst case scenario? And then to reframe the thought and write a more balanced, helpful thought to yourself. So this is how we deal with the thinking part. Now let's move on to the body. So what else can we do when we feel anxiety or panic? When we're feeling anxiety, like I said to you before, we tend to project into the future and create predictions of what might happen. And when we're doing that, that can make us feel really, really overwhelmed and also quite dissociated from our reality, because we're constantly living here. We're over here in the future the whole time. And if we're not over here, then with worry, we like to look into the past and ruminate, so think over and over about events that have happened in the past. And we're rarely here in the present moment. So when we feel sort of dissociated and when we feel like we're future focused, what we really need to do is to ground ourselves into the present moment. And this is going to really help with your anxious thoughts sort of not spiraling out of control, because you're bringing yourself into the present rather than letting them sort of spiral into the future, into that worst case scenario thinking like I've gone through with you. And if we think when we're sort of future focused and we're feeling overwhelmed, what's happening with our body? We're back at the beginning, we're back in caveman state. Our body's alarm system is activated, and if any of you is sort of more sciencey and like biology, it's called the sympathetic nervous system. So that's what's activated in our body. So what we really need to do is we need to soothe it. We need to soothe the sympathetic nervous system to help with those feelings of anxiety and to help again sort of suppress that adrenaline that surges when we're feeling anxious. And so the best way to do this is by grounding yourself and using meditation techniques, which some of you might be familiar with these through other workshops, or if you're particularly interested in this area. So the first one is my absolute favorite one. It's about focusing on the 5 senses. All the strategies that I share with you guys and share with my clients, I like to make them really accessible for you and things that you can do in your everyday life. So it doesn't always have to be, a meditation doesn't have to be an hour sitting on the mat like chanting. It doesn't need to be that. I can make it much more accessible for you, and this is one of them, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. And this is also great when you can't sleep at night. So if any of you, when you're trying to get to sleep tonight, sleep at night is when your brains love to be active and your minds then tend to think more like anxious thoughts or tend to go into sort of a pattern of overthinking, and you find it really difficult to switch off, this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method is a great tool for you to use. And I'm going to invite you guys to use I'm hoping it'll pop up on my screen, the chat function for this. So what we're going to do together, and write this down, is we're going to think of 5 things that we can see. So we're going to start with 5 things we can see, 4 things we can hear, 3 things we can feel, 2 things we can smell, and 1 thing that we can taste. So I'm going to invite you guys to share with me on the chat function sort of what you're noticing as you practice this exercise. So it's 5 you can see, 4 you can hear, 3 you can feel, 2 you can smell, and 1 you can taste. And I'm going to join in with you. So I'm going to start with 5 that I can see. A brush, a fork, a mirror, a cup, and my bed. Nice. Sofa, TV, handbag, bottle of water, notebook, laptop, blanket, phone, table, and sofa. Lovely. Clutter, cat, screen, keyboard, kitchen, plants, books, my big yellow cardigan, my cat, calendar, dry shampoo. Dry shampoo is an essential. That should always be in sight. I've shared candle, crystals, if any of you are into that, screen, light and slippers. Another cat, this PowerPoint, probably me, my journal, the teal nail polish. I'm currently painting my nails, look at that. I love that, painting your nails as you listen. Juice, tablet, phone, pen, notepad, my dog, my husband, I hope husband might be listening in, the sea, journal, oh god, they're going too quick, TV, table, chair, sofa, cup, my puppy, my diffuser, weighted blanket, oh lovely, journal, candles, lots of laptops, notebook, pens, coffee, water, vitamins, pillow, mobile, laptop, purse, lots of laptops, plate, table, notepad, book, pillow. Great. So that, hopefully that's the first one, right? So you must be feeling already more present focus, right? So I've got you to notice your surroundings, and often we're on autopilot. A lot of the time we're on autopilot and we don't even notice what's going on around us because we're just sort of focused, living in the future. So we've done 5 that we can see. Now let's all share 4 things, and you might have to really listen out for them, 4 things that you can hear. Lucy talking. Family members, you, birds outside. I've got birds. I got a bee as well. Footstep, birds. Ah, it's nice we can all hear the birds. Cars. My puppy, sweet candle. My sister's talking downstairs. More birds, birds. The sea. Oh, Alicia, by the sea. I'm so jealous. Lucy speaking. Dog's paws on the floor, sweet. Plane overhead. Dogs barking at something outside. Food cooking. I got food cooking too. Boyfriend kicking ball. Fingers hitting keyboard. Knife. I'm imagining from the cooking. I'm hoping there, Valentina. Cars, laughter, construction, this workshop. Cars going by, family members cooking, same. Neighbours talking, birds. My voice, keyboard, wind, cars. Thanks, Valentina, for the clarification. Rain, oh, rain, where you are. Birds, people talking outside, television playing. My voice, my breathing, nice, really focused. Fingers typing, the machinery of the laptop. We can hear the typing. Fab. Hearing can sometimes be really difficult, especially when you're lying in bed at night. But even if you can't get 4, the fact that you're sort of focusing on that sense is doing what we want you to do. It's making you feel really present focused. So let's go on to the next one. So 3 things that you can feel. Share with me 3 things that you can feel. My calf under my feet, laptop keys, sofa, keyboard, blanket, clothes on my skin, laptop, sofa, yeah. Pizza crust, yum, I've got pizza for dinner too. Ketchup, pillow, keyboard, blanket, skin, blanket, laptop, keyboard, chair, clothes, warmth on my body, lovely Jennifer, the wind, really nice, and the wall behind me. The chair, blowing on my nails, this is the teal nail polish, cat's fluffy hair, slight breeze from the window, weighted blanket, lovely, heated pad, comfy t-shirt, PJs, keyboard, parsley, chair, concrete floor, my dog's fur, my laptop keys, my clothes, yoga mat, sore muscles, MSG, I imagine you've been doing some workouts, hair in a ponytail, and my slippers on my feet. Great, so that's 3 we can feel. 2 we can smell. So let's share 2 things now that we can smell. Oh, I love incense, coffee and incense, body cream and grass, lovely. Mum's cooking and perfume, really nice. I've got my candle and the fresh air, I've got all the windows open. The warmth of the sun, lovely, and pepperoni. My dinner and body cream, cooking and perfume, lots of lovely perfumes around. Courgettes and parsley cooking, hand soap, tea tree oil and perfume, home cooked lunch, fresh salty air. Oh, the sea, Alicia, you're getting me every time with the sea. Really nice, guys, really, really good. The parsley and my green juice and body, there's lots of parsley around. Nail polish remover on the pad. There's a lot around the nails. This is so funny. And orange juice. Please share any more that you can smell. As we go down the list, it gets more and more tricky. We have to really tune in to our senses. So if you're ready, let's do the last one. This one's tricky. The last one is what you can taste. Coffee, cheese, nice. Elderflower, oh, I love elderflower cordial, Lizzie. Coffee, chili, chicken, tea, saliva. Yeah, saliva's always going to be that one. Tea, nice. What else have we got, guys? What else can you taste? Saliva while I'm cooking. What are you making, Valentine? It must be delicious. Water, yeah. Alicia, whatever's right for you. Yep, orange juice, rice with chicken and courgettes. Nice, it sounds really good. Pressed juice, oh, that sounds so good. Carrot, apple, spinach, lemon, parsley, ginger, kale. Okay, so you've absolutely trumped that. You've got like 7 tastes, so really great work there, MSG, nice. No one's on alcohol. You've got all that very healthy bunch. It's a bank holiday here in the UK. Yeah, gee, you feel so mindful. Let me know how you found this exercise, guys, and if you're feeling much more sort of present focused. My clients love this one. It's so accessible and you can just look on your hand and remind yourself. Good, I'm so pleased that you feel so relaxed. I'm really pleased. Ah, Lizzie, you're my girl. Gin and tonic is my drink. Good choice. Good choice. Love this, sharing with husband. Great. Yeah, this is one that you can share with everyone. It works for everyone. It's great. It just helps get us right back into the here and now and into the present. So that, guys, is our first strategy for our body. The second one, and simple but so effective, is just to focus on the breath. Just breathing a little deeper and slower will calm you right down and sort of reduce that physical reaction of the adrenaline being surging through your body. So just focusing on your breath. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth is like our brain's reset mechanism. And when we're breathing and focusing on our breath, it means we're not so focused on our thoughts and the feelings of distress. And so if we're not sort of focused on these thoughts and feelings of distress, our minds then can think more logically and rationally and not just be caught up in anxiety. So you might even want to focus on your breath before you go through those 3 strategies for challenging thought, because you might then have a bit more clarity, and sort of soothing your sympathetic nervous system. And I'm sure a lot of you would have done sort of breath work before. My rule, again, numbers, is to do 4, 4, 6. So you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, and then you breathe out for 6 seconds. And counting those seconds can then really help you to, again, be more mindful, be more present, focus, and to make sure you're really focusing on that inhale and exhale and that reset. So that's my second one. Again, like, we're thinking about meditation, of course, it's so beneficial and great to, you know, be on your yoga mat, do an hour-long meditation. But if you're busying around, you're in a social situation, it's making you feel anxious, you're at work, it's making you feel anxious, you know, you're out and about, this is something you can just do instantly. You literally just go, okay, focus on my breath. That's meditation. Switching from wherever you were in your mind to just straight onto your breath. That's meditation. It's as simple as that. So 4, 4, 6. Oh, that's great, Lizzie. I find the counting helpful. I like the counting too. So you've got 5 for the senses, then 4, 4, 6 for the breath. And if you want to make the breath even more powerful, you can incorporate a positive affirmation. I love positive affirmations. If any of you follow me on Instagram, I am forever posting them on my stories. On Monday, I've done it for the last year, and it has a real following now. I do Monday mantras where I just post positive affirmations. They're really, really powerful in shifting your mindset. So what you can do is you can incorporate a positive oh yeah, I'll share my Insta. It's at the end of my slides as well. It's @LucySpicer_. what you can do is you can incorporate this positive affirmation into your breathing. And by doing that, you're then telling your subconscious mind with the affirmation that you are safe. So examples might be when you're breathing, to say to yourself in your mind, I am more and more calm with every breath I take. So I'm more and more calm with every breath I take. And that's going to make it even more powerful, sort of the experience of soothing your sympathetic nervous system. Another one that I love is I breathe in relaxation and I breathe out tension. So you're inhaling relaxation and you're exhaling tension. And the last one might be something like, I'm in control of my mind and body. So I am in control of my mind and body. And like I said at the beginning of the workshop, you know, you are the boss. Your anxiety is not ruling you. You are the boss. You have the tools, you have the resources in you to be able to control it and to become the master of your mind, because this whole workshop is really teaching you what is going on. And with that awareness, you understand what's going on and therefore you have the control. So they're the three. So I'm more and more calm with every breath I take. I breathe in relaxation. I breathe out tension. And I'm in control of my mind and body. So let's move. Oh, how can I move the slide when do I have to click close in the chat? So I'm going to pull this all together. So we've discussed strategies for the mind and the body. And this stop analogy sort of pulls this all together for us. And if you learn just one skill and take away from the workshop, it's this. So get your phones out, take a photo of it, because if you practice this, you're going to be able to take control of your emotions and therefore your life. You can use this with lots of different emotions. So anxiety, if you feel like you're spiraling into low mood, sort of anger, any conflict, it just really, really helps you to create that pause before you react. And by creating that pause, it gives you then the opportunity for freedom or growth, because then you can choose to have a more helpful or positive response. So something happens, it generates sort of an anxious thought or feeling of anxiety, rather than just spiraling into that diagram like I showed you. Using this means that you create that pause, you use all the strategies that I've suggested, and then you can choose to have a more helpful or positive response, and a response that's going to serve you better. So let's go through this together. It's all the things that we've spoken about in the workshop so far. So the S, stop. So pause for a moment. Create that pause before you're reacting. 2, take a breath. So shift your attention to your breathing. Like we said, right? That's your brain's reset. Shift your attention to your breathing. 3, observe. What thoughts are you having? What are you reacting to? And what do you notice in your body? So this is called sort of metacognition. So then you're up here sort of observing what's going on for you, rather than just being all caught up in it. And this is how, you know, you build your self-awareness, is creating this metacognition, this ability to be able to observe what's going on for you. So that's number 3. Number 4 is to pull back. So again, you know, remember I said sort of take that helicopter view, take a wider perspective. So don't believe everything you think. What is the bigger picture here? Remember, is this thought fact or fiction? Most likely fiction. And can I look at it in a different way? So how can I reframe the thought? So you got your S, you got your T, you got your O, you got your P. And your last P is to practice what works. Ask yourself, what is the best thing for me to do right now? How can I serve myself? And with these strategies, you know, it will be different for all of you in terms of what you prefer using and what's more effective. Some of you might enjoy journaling, you might be quite analytical, so the challenging the thought is the one for you. Some of you might be into your numbers, like I shared in the chat, and so the senses might be the one for you, if that's your thing. Or it might be doing the breath work. So it really is whatever works for you. There's never sort of a one model that fits all. With all my clients, I adapt and tailor my strategies and interventions sort of based on them and their interests and what works for them. So whatever works for you, it's the breathing exercises, if it's the affirmations and you love that, and writing a mantra for yourself, or it's the challenging the thought. So this, pulling it together, is your key strategy. So take a photo, write it down. Like I said before, with the challenging the thought, the more that you practice, it's like a skill. The more that you practice this, the more then you're just like how I've done today. And if I felt anxious, what I did when I felt anxious about doing this talk, the more then you'll just be able to do it automatically. And so that's the end of, I feel like I've bombarded you with information, but that's sort of the end of me speaking. If you want to reach out to me, then please find me on my website. So it's www.lucyspicer.com. Please email me at lucy@lucyspicer.com. Or you can find me on Instagram. Yes, Leanne at lucyspicer_. And if you love the affirmations, you will love the Instagram. Let me just find, yes, the breathing affirmations course. Okay, shall I write them down in the chat? Maybe that will be helpful, more helpful for you. So it's, I feel more and more calm with each breath I take. That's the first one. The second one is I breathe in relaxation. I breathe out tension. And the last one is I am in control of my mind and body. There's lots of different ones that you can use. Oh, thank you so much, Valeria. I'm so pleased that you enjoyed it. It's truly beautiful and helpful. That's very, very kind. Thank you. Thank you, Valentina. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Lisa, Michelle. Thank you, MSG. I hope you do this again. Thank you. See, it challenged my anxious thought there, didn't it? I hope I do it again. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you. Oh my God, they're coming in so quickly. Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, another Valentina. I'm so pleased you found it informative. Stay safe. Yeah, please all stay safe. And I really hope that this helps you, these strategies. Ah, thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Lizzie. I've got lots of thank yous coming in, mate. Thank you. Right, let me see if I can stop sharing and then you can come up. Here we go. Thank you, Leanne. Oh, Lizzie likes to put on music and dance like a loon. Thanks, Linda. Thank you.